And we are on. Welcome, everybody, again. This is our formal welcome. I am Rabbi Marcia Kilchin, uh, the founder of the Jewish Collaborative, and this is our sort of Monday morning ongoing Beit Midrash that meets every Monday at 9:30 Pacific time. Our scholar for the month of April is a dear friend and a very learned scholar of Bible and theology, Rabbi David Lazar, and we're just so blessed to have him with us this morning. And I will turn this journey, how Easter emerged from Passover theology, to him, and this will be the first of 3 sessions.
Okay. Well, good to see everybody again, those who I haven't seen for a few months. Familiar faces, but I think, Asha, this is the first time I'm seeing your face. I'm happy to meet my colleague and my friend's father. Okay. We actually have a common friend. Bob Aronson lives up near us in the desert. I think you know him from Detroit days. Okay. So this is a little bit different than the things that we've done until now. I'm far less an expert. I feel it's all and it's all relative, and it's all has to do with my modesty or lack thereof. When it comes to New Testament literature, it's something I've been that I've delved into over the last 4 years or so. I'm always looking for new things to do and new things, new horizons, and I certainly don't want to be the guy that teaches the same thing all the time or studies the same thing all the time. And that goes for Parshat HaShavua as well. And yet I do. So I try to find a combination. And my passion for interesting word to use today. My passion for interfaith study, as I shared with you a year ago, I think it was, began in 2001 with my close relationship with the Brothers of Taizé in Burgundy, France. And I've learned a lot through them. And then coming to Palm Springs and coming together with with a number of clergy, other progressive liberal clergy from other faith traditions in Palm Springs, and going to church with them and getting a better feeling for the lectionary, that is the readings that are read in church on Sunday and the holidays, and wanting to learn more, and then eventually teaching together with those colleagues, which I shared with you also when we had that particular meeting about the interfaith things. And a few years ago, I taught together with Reverend Kevin Johnson, who was a UCC minister, was a Methodist minister, became UCC. We did the book of Matthew, the Gospel according to Matthew. We called it the Gospel according to Matthew, according to a reverend and a rabbi, something like that. And so I had a chance to really delve deep into Matthew, and then Acts of the Apostles I taught for 11 months together with my colleague and teacher Father Stephen Kinney from Austin, and we continue with that group on Thursdays. We're taking a break right now, and we did Acts with him. Then we did Second Isaiah, and we're going to go back and do the Gospel according to John, which I'm really excited about because that's a very different kind of a gospel than Matthew is. So that's a little bit of the background today. Today we're going to look at the Gospel according to Matthew, a big chunk of it, because it's not the passion narrative. You hear very often that word, that term, the passion narrative. It comes from the Greek patio, from the Latin. Do we have Latin speakers here? Sheila, it feels like something you know Latin. Don't you know Latin?
For the word passion?
Yeah, hold on. I made a note of it. Just a second. And I can't find my piece of paper without
Rosalie, do you know the etymology of the word passion?
No. I just thought it didn't get in here fast enough.
You seemed like you might be the one who knows.
No, right, because I like that kind of stuff, but what can I tell you?
Okay.
Okay, well,
we'll solve that.
It fell on the floor. Hold on. Yeah, all this for one word, patior, P-A-T-I-O-R in Latin. So we think the passion narrative, we think of passion, and our word of passion, no, patior is suffering. So it's the narrative of suffering, and there's a lot of conversation, a lot of debate, even recently, over to what exactly that comprise what makes up the passion narrative. The three what we call the synoptic gospels of Mark, which is thought to be the earlier one, and Matthew and Luke are very similar in their account of those last days of Jesus, which are around the time of Passover, which is why we're going to read this narrative to look for the things that tell us something about Passover or Pesach. I think I can use the word Pesach here in this context. Pesach, what tells us about Pesach in the eyes of the person who's writing it, who's writing after the destruction of the temple, something for us to think about as well. The Gospel of Matthew is writing to a Jewish community. There's a lot of debate over to what. By the way, are there New Testament people here that I have a feeling there may be people here that are far more well versed in New Testament than I am. Just let me know so I can call on you to help out. No? Okay. All right. The Passion narrative, parts of it are read at this time of year where we just finished Easter. And from Palm Sunday, a big part of it is read in the week leading up to the Holy Week leading up to Easter, and it usually coincides with, or closer coincides with, our Pesach. And maybe in the third meeting we'll look at that. We'll look and see where it broke off. So the overall outline of this mini course is today we look at Matthew. And there's a lot of pages there because there's rabbinic materials there. We're not going to finish everything, but we'll begin to look at Matthew. Then next week, we'll look at John, because John does something very different with Jesus and Pesach. And then in the last time, if all goes according to plan, which it never does, as you well know with me, we always bite off more than we can, or I bite off more than we can chew. And the last one, we'll look at Paul and see, and that's actually, closer to the time of Jesus, most of those letters. So even though kind of a basic thing, a kind of optical illusion is that because Matthew is the first of the Gospels, people naturally assume that that's the earliest of the writings, right? We do that, right? In the same way that if you've been exposed to critical study of Torah, which I think all of you have through this framework, through Marcia and other speakers, Genesis is not necessarily the earliest of the writings that we have in the Tanakh, right? There's Psalms which are much earlier. There's different parts of different prophets, certainly that are much earlier. But just because it comes first doesn't mean it's earlier. Same thing with Matthew. Why did Matthew come in the beginning? I don't know the answer to that question. I do know that Matthew, Sheila's going back to Passion. Yeah, Passio. I have Patior, but Passio. In any case, yeah, it's suffering. So Matthew is I feel, and I've been told, but it feels to me through reading the Gospels that there's I'm going to say it this way, there's more for me to comment as a rabbi in Matthew than I found in the other Gospels right now. That just means I find a lot of commonality. Does that mean anything about how it was written, who composed it and what the intentions were? Not a lot, because I'm very limited in my knowledge. We're going to find when we get to John that there's an important scholar, American scholar, who put forth that John is actually a very Jewish gospel. And then finally, no, not finally. Let's get to the text. I'm sorry, I'm a little less than usually focused here. I apologize, but let's get to the text, and let's rearrange my screen a second so it'll be easier for me to toggle back and forth. Would you like me to put the text on the screen, or would you rather I don't?
I think you should, if you can.
Okay, so the only thing there is that if I do that, then I can't see your expressions. Usually I'm looking to see, I know many of you now already for a few years, and I know when you want to say something, or when you're raising your hand, you're fidgeting or something. So I won't be able to do that, but I'll take the text off from time to time and look for those facial things. I mean, look how far we've come. Remember in the beginning with Zoom, it was just really difficult without that human contact, but we get it through the screens usually. Okay, so let's, do I have, yeah, am I able to share, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And also people can, under reactions, if they do have a question, they can raise their hand and you will see that, David.
Yeah, that's true. I will see that little doodad thing. Okay. All right. All right then. So it's oh yeah, and also it's harder for me to call on people to read, but why don't Sheila, let's just start with you because you're one of the you're a good
Can
reader.
you,
And
can you make
David,
it a little bigger?
I'm going to ask you to press the plus sign. There you go. That's a little too big.
Perfect. It's nice to be back.
That's
Is that
perfect.
too big?
No, that's
That's
great.
perfect. The part when Passover in the Gospel according to Matthew. But by the way, Netflix has a 3-part series on right now about Moses,
Okay.
clearly written by a Christian scholar.
Yeah, I saw that. I kind of shied away.
Yeah.
But it's probably interesting to watch it. But the thing is, I'll watch it and I'll say, "Oh, where did they get that from?" And okay.
A lot of that. Okay. So 26, 1 point. And that's it. To my understanding, wasn't the book according to Gospel according to Matthew really written with the intention of trying to convert Jews? Or is that a misnomer?
No, it's not a misnomer. There's a debate about it. In other words, it could be for the Jewish, and also something we've talked about before. So let me go back to the Hollywood Squares a second. That there used to be this thought in research that there was the parting of ways. And the argument was, when did that come exactly? It was certainly after the destruction of the temple, but when did those Jews who were followers of Jesus, and there's different stages of what does that mean? Son of God, Messiah, suffering for our sins, all those things progress with time. Many of those things are not explicitly mentioned in New Testament text, but at what point did it break away and become the church and Christianity as opposed to Judaism? And what scholars are thinking today, at least the scholars that I'm reading and I'm exposed to, and there was no parting of ways. It took 200, 300 years. It was a long process in different speeds in different places. One sees that in the book of Acts. We saw that very well in Acts, how it applies. So I don't know. So if this was written specifically for a Jewish community, it feels like it. Yes, I would say yes. But in order to convert them, I don't know, because in other words, it's not a black or white. It's not a, yeah, it's a spectrum. It's a process, I think. Yes, Chuck.
I've heard that the Conference of Nicaea was a major formal breaking point.
Right. And we'll get to that in the third meeting, because that has a lot to do with the break between Passover and between Pesach and Pascha and Easter. Yeah, Easter around the world in many places, Easter is called Pascha or Påsk. In Swedish is Påsk and not Easter. That's a different thing. We'll talk about what the word Easter comes from. Yes, Sylvia.
And what translation are you using for this?
I always use the New Revised Standard Version.
I have that. I have that somewhere. I also have the King James, which is
Yeah,
different.
so King James, I don't, but King James is interesting if you want to look at what we call the history of interpretation, right? Because whatever it is that those that translated the New Revised Standard Version were much closer to knowledge of ancient languages, whether it's Hebrew, Aramaic, or Greek, and had far more manuscripts and things to access.
And I think the Jacobeans had a little bit of an agenda going there too.
Yeah. Oh, there's fascinating stuff.
Yes.
And all that, by the way, translates today in the United States. I have a book that's just about those who are convinced, that parts of the church that you met these folks, that the King James Version is the God-given version. It was inspired directly by God, and that's why they continue to use it. There are churches today, mostly in the South, I think. And what the most fascinating part is, what do they do when in the Museum of Bible in Washington, D.C., which is a family-owned museum, and family is part of
Wait,
family.
Rabbi David, are you saying you're using the Bible that's currently on sale for $60, signed by someone running for the presidency of the United States?
Let's get to the text.
No, but I am wearing those tennis shoes, though.
I hope so.
All right, we're sorry. You're right. I'm sorry. We're getting way off the.
Okay.
Marcia's right here. Okay, thanks for being here to keep us in line. Here we go. Go ahead.
Okay. Part 1, Passover in the Gospel according to Matthew 26, 1.5. When Jesus had finished saying all these things, he said to his disciples, "You know that after 2 days the Passover is coming, and the Son of Man will be handed over to be crucified." Then the chief priests and the elders of the people gathered in the palace of the high priest, who was called, how do I pronounce it? Caiaphas.
Cephas usually. Caiaphas
Caiaphas,
or
thank
Cephas.
you. And they conspired to arrest Jesus by stealth and kill him. But they said, "Not during the festival, or there may be a riot among the people."
Okay, so we're not going to go into the Son of God business, which is a complicated kind of thing used in different ways in different parts of the text. But in this case, Jesus speaking about himself. Now, the context here from a chronological point of view or from the narrative point of view is that Passover is coming, Pesach is coming, and then there's this tension. That's something that I wanted to bring out here. The tension between something is about to happen, but it can't happen on Pesach because there might be a riot. This the where the narrator is set up this tension is really interesting one. Not because it's not right, not because there's this joy, but it'll hurt the joy of the festival, but it might cause a riot. The political now what I'd like us to think about here is what is going on in the minds of the Jewish community of Jerusalem, where this is taking place, or in the outskirts during this period of time. And we'll ask afterwards, we'll have a conversation about what we think from what we know from 2,000 years ago, what we think we know, what we feel we know as Jews living 2,000 years later, and knowing what's in the Torah, knowing that what's in the Talmud is something very different. What do we think is going on? What is this really? What might be the undercurrents here? But let's go on. Read another section for us, please.
Should I skip to 14:16?
No, you can go ahead and do.
Okay.
Yeah,
Now,
I think I want to read the. Yeah, I thought of doing a truncated text, but I want to get the whole feeling to see what we might learn from this.
Now, while Jesus was at Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, a woman came to him with an alabaster jar of very costly ointment, and she poured it on his head as he sat at the table. But when the disciples saw it, they were angry and said, Why this waste? For the ointment could have been sold for a large sum and the money given to the poor." But Jesus, aware of this, said to them, "Why do you trouble the woman? She has performed a good service for me. For you always have the poor with you, but you will not always have me. By pouring this ointment on my body, she has prepared me for burial. Truly, I tell you, wherever the good news is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will be told in remembrance of her."
Okay, I'm going to keep my comments short. I just want us to remember here, there's an issue of tension. There was a tension above about during the holiday, the political versus what the people were experiencing. There's the tension here between where you spend your money, where does money go, and bringing in now the chorus here, or in the background, there's extras that are poor people that have been brought up in this conversation. What about the poor people? Okay, Ria, you want to read 14:16?
David, I just want to say one thing, which is very
Yeah.
interesting. What this sort of brings up for me is that, the first of the four special Shabbatot before Passover is all about everybody paying their annual tithe of half a shekel. It's Shabbat Shekalim, and it's for all the repairs that are going to need to be done in Jerusalem, both structural that are essential and cosmetic, to make it, as beautiful and and accommodating for the masses that are going to come for the sacrifice. Is very interesting because money is, there's a reason why tax time is April 15th, and it goes back to the Torah, when it's, springtime. But just the fact that there's even an issue about money here is also like, where are we investing our resources? And so, there's just a whole political tension here too that I want to bring up.
Absolutely. A political, economic. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, Ria, you want to go ahead and read 14:16?
And I just wanted to ask one fast question. When was this written?
Yeah, we probably 80 to 95, something like the last part of the first century. That's what
Oh, okay,
scholars say.
thanks. Okay. Then one of the 12, who was called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, "What will you give me if I betray him to you?" They paid him 30 pieces of silver. And from that moment, he began to look for an opportunity to betray him.
Right.
On
Now
the
this is
first day,
hold on, this is a total, like, this is a side plot, a subplot, right? But it's still,
Yeah.
I think we need a key for the whole story in general. Go ahead.
on the first day of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus saying, "Where do you want us to make the preparations for you to eat the Passover?" He said, "Go into the city to a certain man and say to him, 'The teacher says, my time is near. I will keep the Passover at your house with my disciples.'" So the disciples did as Jesus had directed them, and they prepared the Passover meal.
I'm
When
going
it
to
was
ask
eve,
everybody, hold on. I'm going to ask everybody to suspend your natural inclination to try to figure out the chronology of events here, opposite the calendar that we know. Were there two holidays? One is Passover, one is unleavened bread, as many people will say, as there was once upon a time in the way in the Torah before it was the text, the pretext of the Torah, or is this just confusion afterwards? I'd like us to step back from that and just understand, pick out the elements that we know are from the whole Pesach thing, Pesach topic, and that time of year. So without trying to go through, you only get frustrated if you try to go through the days here and figure out exactly what day was what in our calendar. Go ahead.
when it was evening, he took his place with the 12. And while they were eating, he said, "Truly, I tell you, one of you will betray me." And they became greatly distressed and began to say to him one after another, "Surely not I, Lord." He answered, "The one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me. The Son of Man goes as it is written of him. But woe to that by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for that one not to have been born." Judas, who betrayed him, said, "Surely not I, Rabbi," he replied. "You have said so." While they were eating, Jesus took a loaf of bread, and after blessing it, he broke it, gave it to the disciples, and said, "Take, eat, this is my body." Then he took a cup, and after giving thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will never again drink of this fruit of the vine until the day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom." When they had sung the hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus said to them, "You will all become deserters because of me this night, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I'm raised up, I will go ahead of you to Galilee," Peter said to him. "Though all became deserters because of you, I will never desert you." Jesus said to him, "Truly, I tell you, this very night, before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times." Peter said to him, "Even though I must die with you, I will not deny you." And so said all the disciples.
Okay, let's take a break for a second. Make notes for yourself, the things that either I've put them in bold or things that strike you as possibly being connected, and we'll bring them up again when we go back to the rabbinic sources to see what we might do with this. But there are a few things, whether it's sticking the hand in the bowl or whether what's going on, what side conversations are going on, the singing of the hymn, which is recognized as being the Hallel. So let me just see, somebody has, what rabbi would be eating bread? Okay, so the bread here, of course, is not chametz. I think the idea is that the bread is matzah. You left in the same way you say hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Bread is not necessarily leavened bread.
But
Bread,
is this the translation? Because it uses the word loaf. And I would not describe, I mean, that's the whole, we're trying to get all the loaves out of our house, anything risen. So can
Yeah,
you?
I don't know. I don't know. I didn't delve into, I could perhaps for the next time to delve in to see what the Greek is there, you know, what it is for loaf, but I don't think that's I think it means a full body. Remember, matzah at this time is not the crunchy stuff that we eat. It's more like a pita
Pizza. Okay.
bread. So when you think of a round pita bread, each one is a loaf.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you. I
I
had
think
to ask.
that's the best way to do it. And I know it, look at people also say, yeah, but that doesn't break. We think of break matzah, you know, breaking bread, we think of matzah, right? You think of challah, is that breaking? No, you tear. It's not. So we have to be very elastic, I think, very flexible with these things.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Chuck, you want to read a little bit?
Of course. What number are we reading?
Or 36 to 46.
36-46. Quick comment first. Samuel Sandmel was a Jewish scholar of New Testament. He was my father-in-law's fraternity brother at the University of Missouri many thousands of years ago.
That's great. I have a comment. When I'm at home, I'll go look. One of the commentaries I have is by Sandmill.
Of course, of
Yeah.
course.
Okay.
Yeah, he was very proud of that. They were good friends. Okay. Then Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took with him Peter and the two sons of Zebedee and began to be grieved and agitated. Then he said to them, "I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and stay awake with me." And going a little further, he threw himself on the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me, yet not what I want, but what you want." Then he came to the disciples and found them sleeping, and he said to Peter, "So, could you not stay awake with me 1 hour? Stay awake and pray that you may not come into the time of trial. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." I didn't know where that came from. Then he went away for the second time and prayed, "My Father, if this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done." Again he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. So leaving them again, he went and prayed for the third time. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped a line. He said to them, "Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? See, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand."
Okay. So just this whole business is staying up all night. I know many of us might go to Shavuot, but think in terms of perhaps the Seder, that story about the four Chachamim who, you know, are talking Torah for the entire night. But just one element out of this rather long section. Well, let's continue. And I'm just looking at names here.
I'll read.
Yeah, please go ahead. Go ahead.
So
I have
the
a
other,
question.
yes, Rosalie, go ahead, dear.
So meanwhile, his body has been prepared with oil, and it seems like it's the day before or earlier that day. So they have to prepare it with oil again, or anoint him, clean him up after he dies. It's a little confusing for me.
Yeah, it's very confusing, but this is the way I like to read this particular section. There are these are foreshadowing of Jesus becoming Mashiach, the anointed one. One of them is the story about the woman who spends a lot of money on this and is chastised for that. Where is the last scene? Where is it taking place?
Starts with a G. Gethsemane.
Right. Anybody know where that comes? What the Hebrew is?
Gethsemane.
Gat Shemen. Gat Shemen. That's the name of the place in Hebrew.
Oh.
So Gat Shemen means the place where the oil is made,
The
oil,
name.
the oil press.
Oh.
And so these are all this is all kind of building up this kind of thing of on one hand, betrayal, another hand, around Jesus, the betrayal and the anointing part of it. And when is this happening? About Passover, and we'll go into greater detail, but when people are talking about liberation, when they're talking about redemption, when they're being with families and speaking Torah and telling these stories all night together and dipping in the bowl and eating matzah and try to find meaning in what it means to eat matzah. But I don't want to. That's me more than foreshadowing. I want to go back over these things after we finish the narrative. But I see Sylvia has her hand raised. Go ahead,
And
Sylvia.
Ria did first. Ria had her hand raised.
Sorry,
before
I
you
can't
did.
see that from what I'm looking at.
It's okay.
Go ahead. So Ria first.
Okay. I just wanted to say, we have our concept of the Seder. We have a Haggadah. There was nothing like that. So
we're gonna get to that. Well, I don't know that there was nothing like that, but it wasn't what we have.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
We will, and we'll learn about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I promise, even if it takes us until the third meeting, we never get to Paul. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
But good question. Yes. And Sylvia?
I think from back in the day when I used to study this, well, not so much, but I was there. I always interpreted the story of the woman and the oil as a socio-political statement about where we do spend our resources, and knowing that we have poor and we will always have poor, but Jesus was a special guy. So
Yes.
it was okay.
Yeah. And
It was like it's like a defense of spending money on one person rather than you could spend all that money on feeding the poor.
right. And we'll revisit that. We'll go back to that. What do you do with your money and resources? Yeah. What I want to do is to get through the narrative, at least today, and then go back to utilizing rabbinic materials and what we know as well to kind of lift up these issues to try to show what this might meant at the time from the context of Pesach. Okay. Before we talk about Easter.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
While he was speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived, and with him a large crowd with swords and clubs from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had given them a sign saying, "The one I will kiss is the man, and you arrest him." At once he came up to Jesus and said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. Jesus said to him, "Friend, do what you are here to do." Then they came and laid hands on Jesus and arrested him. Suddenly, one of those with Jesus put his hand on the sword, drew it, and struck the slave of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Then Jesus said to him, Put your sword back into its place, for all who take the sword shall perish by the sword. Do you think that I cannot appeal to my Father, and he will at once send me more than 12 legions of angels? But how then would the scriptures be fulfilled, which say it must happen this way? At the hour, Jesus said to the crowds, "Have you come out with swords and clubs to arrest me as though I were a bandit? Day after day, I sat in the temple teaching, and you did not arrest me. But all this has taken place so that the scriptures of the prophets may be fulfilled." Then all the disciples deserted him and fled. Those who had arrested Jesus took him to Caiaphas, the high priest, in whose house the scribes and elders had gathered. But Peter was following him at a distance, as far as the courtyard of the high priest. And going inside, he sat with the guards in order to see how this would end. Now the chief priests and the whole council were looking for false testimony against Jesus so that they might put him to death, but they found none, though many false witnesses came forward. At last, two came forward and said, "This fellow said, I am able to destroy the temple of God, and to build it in 3 days. The high priest stood up and said, "Have you no answer? What is this they testify against you?" But Jesus was silent. Then the high priest said to him, "I put you under oath before the living God. Tell us, if you are the Messiah, the Son of God." And Jesus said to him, "You have said so. But I tell you, from now on, you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven." Then the high priest tore his clothes and said, "He has blasphemed. Why do we still need witnesses? You have now heard his blasphemy. What is your verdict?" And they answered, "He deserves death." Then they spat in his face and struck him, some slapping him, saying, prophesy to us, you Messiah. Who is it that struck you?" Now Peter was sitting outside the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him and said, "You also were with Jesus, the Galilean." But he denied it before all of them, saying, "I do not know what you're talking about." When he went out to the porch, another servant girl saw him, and she said to the bystanders, "This man was with Jesus of Nazareth." Again he denied it with an oath, "I do not know the man." After a little while, the bystanders came up and said to Peter, "Certainly you are one of them, for your accent betrays you." Then he began to curse, and he swore on oath, "I do not know the man." At the moment the cock crowed, at the moment the cock crowed, then Peter remembered what Jesus said, "Before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times." And he went out and wept bitterly.
And everybody's asking themselves, well, this is a lovely story, and we're glad that we're reading it finally, because it's not something we read all the time from the beginning to the end. But what does this possibly have to do with Pesach? And I tell you that I have some ideas about it that perhaps I will be able to convince you, maybe not, but let's continue with the story and keep with it. Just taking the story as it is, on the assumption that most of us here have not really read this slowly through before. Could we have somebody else reading?
Rosalie? Oh, okay. Okay, Sandra, that's great.
When morning came, all the chief priests and the elders of the people conferred together against Jesus in order to bring about his death. They bound him, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate, the governor. When Judas, his betrayer, saw that Jesus was condemned, he repented and brought back the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders. He said, "I have sinned by betraying innocent blood." But they said, "What is that to us? See to it yourself." Throwing down the pieces of silver in the temple, he departed. He went and hanged himself. But the chief priests, taking the pieces of silver, said, "It is not lawful to put them into the treasury, since they are blood money." After conferring together, they used them to buy the potter's field as a place to bury foreigners. For this reason, that field has been called the field of blood to this day. Then was fulfilled what had been spoken through the prophet Jeremiah. And they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of the one on whom a price had been set, on whom some of the people of Israel had set a price, and they gave them for the potter's field, as the Lord commanded me.
Okay, let's take a break here. One of the reasons I felt that we need to bring the whole thing was, even this business here, is because although it's a side plot that I pointed out in the very beginning, the plot when the rooster crows, the betrayal here, all these things are things going on the side, but all of them have to do with, I think, with the Pesach experience. In this case, I'm just going to raise the issue of blood. The motif in this last paragraph was blood, the blood money, the field of blood, blood on his hands. Okay, and I know many of you are thinking well, many of you may be thinking of, well, where do a lot of anti-Semitic things come from church teachings? Yes, this is one of those pieces as well. The Pharisees, of course, are the ones that go on to become what we call Chazal, the sages. But we will, let's continue. Go ahead, continue reading a little bit more, please. Sandra, you want to read a little more?
Okay, now Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus said, "You say so." But when he was accused by the chief priests and elders, he did not answer. Then Pilate said to him, "Do not Do you not hear how many accusations they made against you? But he gave them no answer, not even to a single charge, so that the governor was greatly amazed. Now at the festival, the governor was accustomed to release a prisoner for the crowd, anyone whom they wanted. At that time, they had a notorious prisoner called Jesus Barabbas. So after they had gathered, Pilate said to them, "Whom do you want me to release for you? Jesus Barabbas or Jesus who is called the Messiah?" For he realized that it was out of jealousy that they had handed him over. While he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent word to him, "Have nothing to do with that innocent man, for today I have suffered a great deal because of a dream about him." Now the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowds to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus killed. The governor again said to them, "Which of the two do you want me to release for you?" And they said, "Barabbas." Pilate said to them, "Then what should I do with Jesus, who is called the Messiah?" All of them said, "Let him be crucified." Then he asked, "Why? What evil has he done?" And they shouted all the more, "Let him be crucified."
Okay, so I know what's brewing and boiling in people's stomachs here in this particular passage, and maybe you've heard before where they accused us of killing Jesus, but we didn't do it, and it was really, yeah. A lot of this was taken, what was treated in what's called Vatican II. I've got some of those texts. If we get to that, if there's an interest, we'll perhaps get to that as well. But that's not our main goal here. Our main goal is not to talk about where accusations that became religious anti-Semitism came from, but to try to embrace this whole thing of again, another tension here brought in. With every new scene, there's a different kind of tension going on, and here it's the people and what they want to happen, or at least in the way the story is being told. And who do you have mercy on? You can only have mercy on one of them. Okay, somebody else to read 24, 26?
Okay, I can read.
Go ahead, Corey.
24, 26. So when Pilate saw that he could do nothing, but rather that a riot was beginning, he took some water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of this man's blood. See to it yourselves." Then the people as a whole answered, "His blood be on us and on our children." So he released Barabbas to them, and after flogging Jesus, he handed him over to be crucified. Then
Please.
the soldiers of, yes?
No, please continue. Yeah.
Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the governor's headquarters, and they gathered the whole cohort around him. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him. And after twisting some thorns into a crown, they put it on his head. They put a reed in his right hand and knelt before him and mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" They spat on him and took the reed and struck him on his head. After mocking him, they stripped him of the robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him away to crucify him. Should I go on?
Yes, please. Yeah.
As they went out, they came upon a man from Cyrene named Simon. They compelled this man to carry his cross. And when they came to a place called Golgotha, which means place of a skull, they offered him wine to drink, mixed with gall, but when he tasted it, he wouldn't drink it. And when they had crucified him, they divided his clothes among themselves by casting lots. Then sat down there and kept watch over him. Over his head they put the charge against him, which read, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews."
Okay. Difficult to hear, difficult to read, difficult to imagine. Some of you perhaps took the time, I'm not sure how many, to watch Mel Gibson's The Passion of Christ. I think that's what it was called. Or other kinds of pictures. But again, this is all happening in the weekend, the time of Pesach from a Jewish point of view. Somebody else? 3844? We're almost done.
I'll read it.
Yeah, I'll get to all the hands up afterwards, okay? We're almost done with reading the text. Go ahead, please.
Then 2 bandits were crucified with him, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by derided him, shaking their heads and saying, "You who would destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." In the same way, the chief priests also, along with the scribes and elders, were mocking him, saying, "He saved others. He cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him come down from the cross now, and we will believe in him. He trusts in God. Let God deliver him now, if he wants to, for he said, 'I am God's son.'" The bandits who were crucified with him also taunted him in the same way. From noon on, darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon. And at about 3 o'clock, Jesus cried with a loud voice, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani." That is, my God, why have you forsaken me?" When some of the bystanders heard it, they said, "This man is calling for Elijah." At once, one of them ran and got a sponge, filled it with sour wine, put it on a stick, and gave it to him to drink. But the others said, "Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to save him." Then Jesus cried again with a loud voice and breathed his last. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in 2 from top to bottom. The earth shook and the rocks were split. The tombs also were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. After his resurrection, they came out of the tombs and entered the holy city and appeared to many. Now, when the centurion and those with him who were keeping watch over Jesus saw the earthquake and what took place, they were terrified and said, "Truly, this man was God's son."
Okay, someone else? Yeah, I can't see hands up, so just go ahead and start reading, somebody,
Okay, I will.
please.
This is Donna. Many women were also there, looking on from a distance. They had followed Jesus from Galilee and had provided for him. Among them were Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of the sons of Zebedee. When it was evening, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who was also a disciple of Jesus. He went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate ordered it to be given to him. So Joseph took the body and wrapped it in a clean linen cloth and laid it in his own new tomb, which he had hewn in the rock. He then rolled a great stone to the door of the tomb and went away. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were there, sitting opposite the tomb.
Go ahead.
The next
Continue, please.
Okay, the next day, that is, the day after the preparation, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered before Pilate and said, "Sir, we remember that impostor said while he was still alive, 'After 3 days I will rise again.' Therefore, command the tomb to be made secure until the 3rd day. Otherwise, his disciples may go and steal him away and tell the people he has been raised from the dead. And the last deception would be worse than the first." Pilate said to them, "You have a guard of soldiers. Go, make it as secure as you can." So they went with the guard and made the tomb secure by sealing the stone.
Okay. Sheila, can we go back to you? 28?
After the Sabbath, as the first day of the week was dawning, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to see the tomb. And so, oh, wait,
Yeah.
okay. And so another earthquake. And suddenly there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord descending from the heaven came and rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothing white as snow. For the fear of him, the guards shook and became like dead men. But the angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid. I know that you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here, for he has been raised, as he said. Come, see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples he has been raised from the dead. And indeed, he is going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him. This is my message for you." So they left the tomb quickly with fear and great joy and ran to tell his disciples. Suddenly, Jesus met them and said, "Greetings." And they came back to him, took hold of his feet, and worshiped him. Then Jesus said, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me." While they were going, stop.
Continue, please.
While they were going, some of the guard went into the city and told the chief priests everything that had happened. After the priests had assembled with the elders, they devised a plan to give a large sum of money to soldiers, telling them, "You must say his disciples came by night and stole him away while we were asleep. If this comes to the governor's ears, we will satisfy him and keep you out of trouble." So they took the money and did as they were directed. And this story is told among the Jews to this day. Now the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain to which Jesus had directed them. When they saw him, they worshiped him, but some doubted. And Jesus came and said to them, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything that I have commanded you. And remember, I am with you always to the end of the age."
Thank you to all who read, and thank you for enduring this. I know it's tough to read so much, and it's not our style to read through without commenting and asking questions. I just didn't know another way of doing it. I wanted to appreciate what went on in church yesterday or the night before, Saturday night, and the Jesus Christ has risen from the grave is a repetitive theme in readings, in hymns, in what's said in churches. If you've been, you know what I'm talking about. And that's the existential moment for Christians during Easter. And how can we talk about Christ is risen unless we know what led up to the fact that he had to rise from another place? If I had to ask you folks to sum up what we just read now in the last 45 minutes or so, or maybe even more, and we'll go a little bit later. I hope that's all right today. If I had to ask you, what is this a story about? In 1 to 3 words.
Okay.
Go ahead.
It's the betrayal by the Jews.
Okay, so that's that's one. Betrayal. I'm going to put it in the chat so we can go back. Somebody else, Sylvia.
I think it's the story of the rationale for starting a new religion.
Okay.
I think the resurrection, the story of the resurrection, and that Jesus got out of the tomb was the beginning of the start of a new religion, because only someone with supernatural powers could do that.
Okay.
I have 8 words. That's their story, and they're sticking to it.
I have to agree with that. I think one time I was at church on a Friday, Good Friday, with a friend of mine, because I was never Catholic, and they did the St. Matthew Passion, and I was appalled by it. I said, no wonder Catholics hate us. No wonder.
So let's take all these things, and Sylvia, a crucial point of this is the hatred, the anti-Semitism, and maybe we'll get to that in the third meeting that we do. But for me, I would like to perhaps ask you to look at this in maybe a different way. To my mind, this is a story of a miracle. The end of the story brings that about. In other words, and it's the resistance of the Jewish leadership in this particular story. The leadership is not the Pharisees. I misspoke before, and it's the priests, of course. In that the story, and they're sticking to it, as Sheila said, is that there was a miracle. There was a miracle, even though others try to say, no, this is not a miracle. Why is a miracle important at the time of Pesach? Anyone? Because remember, this is happening over Pesach weekend, spring break. Yes, Ria.
Okay, so the miracle of Exodus itself and God's intervention. But the other thing is the Matthew's story is, I think that his main point is to condemn the Jews. Why he hated the Jews, I don't know. Was he part of one of there were all kinds of groups that were going on, from during the Romans' time, around the turn of into the new era. And so who was he? This is just such a polemic. He wraps it all into to go towards the miracle, but he's using it to condemn the Jews. What is this about?
So I'm going to challenge you on this, Ria, in the kindest and most respectful way. Could he not be a Jew who was embarrassed how some other Jews were acting? I mean, I think we've seen that in our own lives, right? Could he not be a Jew who accepted the fact that there was a miracle? And yes, perhaps he's trying to convince other Jews that miracle took place, and the other Jews are saying, no, it didn't take place. He said, well, I'm going to tell you why you don't think it took place, because your leadership was paid off by the Romans. The Romans didn't want this to be a miracle. But go ahead.
No, so the Romans are this passive group of soldiers and executioners, and the active people is a Jewish community, the Jewish leadership. It's just, I am flabbergasted.
Yeah, but I still want you to take a step back. I want everybody to take a step back from the anti-Semitic aspects of this, and which I challenge, as you've already figured out, but to see where is this going from a Pesach point of view. And others brought this up before, that the miracle, or you said before, the miracle, the Exodus from Egypt, what happened in that? What was the essence of the miracle of the Exodus from Egypt? What's the essence of that? This is our
God led the people. God provided the miracle of the plagues and provided the leadership, Moses.
That's the story. That's not what's the essence of that?
Liberation.
Liberation, and God is in charge. God does this. What are miracles about? When we talk about miracles, basically we're saying this is how God is in charge. It's not about the high tide and the low tide, or the red clay that washed into the river to make it red. No. This is, according to the story, God is in charge of nature. God is in charge of human liberation. Therefore, another human being or another set of human beings, the Egyptians, cannot enslave the Israelites. God can bring those people out through the parting of the seas. By the way, the parting of the seas, the tearing of the parochet here, there's so many things here, I think, and I'll hear your arguments in a second, that are about elements from the Pesach telling the story, v'higarat levincha, and you shall tell your children the story.
Oh, we can't hear you. You're muted.
Some host muted. How did that happen? Okay. Okay. So Sylvia, you've had your hand up for a while.
All right, thank you. All right, so I'm kind of willing to almost go there, but I want to know if this was written in 80 or 90 of the Common Era, that's like 60 or 70 years after the fact, correct? Okay, who wrote it? And what were they really saying 80, 60, or 70 years after the fact? Because as you know, Christians were still actually a little Jewish sect that nobody cared about yet. Yes.
Okay. So we don't know exactly. There's a lot of stuff we don't know, and there's tons of scholarship about that, and I'm not an expert at what the latest is. What I'm trying to do for myself is to read this and see what is the author here, and therefore, because this is a sacred text which is read in church, there are other versions that are read at different times. The 3-year cycle, it's very complicated, but this is in the background of what's done, the experience that Christians have, that many Christians, not all Christians, have during Easter, during this the same time. What took them from Pesach to what we know today as Easter? And I see this as a link in that story. That's what I'm trying to talk about now. When somebody said beforehand, it's about resurrection, going back to things. So resurrection, yes, it's definitely about resurrection. Resurrection is renewal, coming to life again. When is this happening as far as the yearly seasons is concerned, everybody? Just pointing out the obvious.
Spring.
Springtime, right? Okay.
Gotta have a spring festival.
Is this the beginning of, is this the rationale for a new religion? I don't think so, because I think Matthew was writing for other Jews and furthering not a new religion, but a kind of way of being Jewish. As you said beforehand, or there a number of you have said, Aria said, there are many different kinds of ways of being Jewish, not just 3 or 4. Many that we know from the 1st century BCE, from the 1st century CE, even the 2nd century CE, going on. There's different ways of being Jewish in different parts. Is this about the betrayal of the Jews? I don't think that's the focal point of this. That's a side kind of an issue, but I think this is about, the main point is the miracle, the freedom, the liberation, and showing that God is in charge. God is so much in charge that God can bring the dead back to life. Let's get a few other comments here. Anyone?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a question, probably just what happened years and years later. What about all the stations? When do they come into play? Is that something new from the last couple of centuries, or?
I don't know the answer. That's a really good question. And anybody who's been to Jerusalem, the Via Dolorosa, and
Right.
even and been part of those kind of tours, I don't know. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, but really good question. Yeah. And part of this experience, of course, right? Okay, so I think we're go ahead, Sylvia, you had something else.
Yeah, because I get where you're going, but in in the 1st century or 2, one of the things that was happening was the Romans were kind of worried that the Jews were going to be revolting all the time. So every time they saw something like what was going on with Jesus, and there was a bunch of people saying, "Oh, I like this guy," maybe there would be a revolt. So they were pretty heavy-handed, given the fact that 100 years later there was Bar Kokhba, and we lost the temple then. So this was, I think, maybe from a Roman or a Jewish point of view, a way of trying to save the temple, save the Jews from eradication by the Romans, saying, no, we're not going to rebel.
Okay, I'm not sure exactly how to. Yes, there's one of the tensions going on here. Of course, is everybody is under Roman domain, and nobody seems to be happy about that, because everybody wants and all this is being written after, certainly after this is being written after the destruction of the temple. Everybody wants there to be the Mashiach again, to be a king of David, and to go back the way that it's supposed to go. And so that's in the background of this. Another part that's in the back, and therefore that whole business about the king of the Jews is important. Another thing that's important that we're going to go back to is the wine, the motif of wine from the beginning of the story to almost the very end of Jesus, and the vinegar, and what's going on. Another motif we're going to go back to is the tension between poor and giving, and who pays for what, including the burial of Jesus. What I'd love to go into, and Sheila, are you still here? I know that Sheila is very okay, but others here, and Ria as well, who I think just had to go. Another thing that we're not going to go into, which is fascinating, are the part that women play in these narratives, as we saw already. Really interesting stuff. But let's end with a question or a comment from Corinne, who has her hands up.
An ongoing rhetoric I've always heard is that they were expecting a political Moshiach, and then that kind of Jesus betrayed the ideology of political Moshiach. And hadn't there been Judah, there wouldn't have been Jesus. Like Judah brought kind of the Moshiach the Christians believe in, because he hadn't been there supposedly to betray the Moshiach. He wouldn't have gone on the cross, saved the world, etc., etc.
Yeah. My view of that is that if God had intention, in other words, God works in strange ways, right? That's how, even through Judas, I think, and then Judas himself has a chance to repent, to do tshuva. There's fascinating assets through all of this, and we'll try to get most of those things. When we meet next week, we'll go through some rabbinic material, a recognition of the fact that this story is out there. What I would like everybody at least to take away from today, and perhaps if you've got time, read over the text again, listen to the text, what the text wants to tell you, what the text is trying to tell you, without trying to second guess too many things. What's the background? We'll get to of course, we're studying critically, so we'll try to get to the background. But what I would like to get out of it is, what is the Christian experience through reading the book of Matthew, and where is Pesach in this whole story? We brought up a lot of things. We'll bring up other things afterwards. So that's my question for homework for next week. Where do you find Pesach in these long 3 or 4 chapter, whatever we read just now? Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Somebody was saying something. Okay. I'm sorry. It was so much text. We'll do much less text and more discussion next week. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rabbi. It was
Thank
great.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you very much.
Welcome, everyone.